We've left spring behind and summer is upon us, which means it's now shearing time. And this is a soay, one of the most ancient indigenous breeds we have in the country. And the soay still naturally molts. So being a mammal that lives in a temperate climate, they grow a winter fleece to keep them nice and warm. And then in the springtime, like your cats and dogs, they molt, they shed their winter coat. So if I get this soay to stand up you get, mate, you can see that his fleece has mostly fallen out now. It's naturally molted. And what farmers of ancient times would have done in Neolithic times, they'd have caught the sheep and plucked the wool from them. This is the old fleece breaking away from the new. So I'm not pulling his hair out, I'm just breaking the fibres. And this was known as ruing, and we would have collected the wool from them. And then over centuries, we selectively bred from sheep that hang on to their wool. And of course, having bred sheep that can no longer molt, you then have to shear it from them. And if you don't, they suffer from heat stroke. So every year, all around Britain, the world, sheep have to be shorn by skilled and experienced shearers. I'll take you to the shearing shed and tell you more. Some farm animals that are mammals. What other things as mammals? Sheep. What else? Cows, brilliant. Pigs, brilliant. Rabbits, excellent. Dogs, very good. And all of these mammals are mammals because they have four things that makes a mammal a mammal. What are they? All mammals of what? Any adults? Any parents? Yeah? Shout out if you like. They all give birth to live young, of course, fantastic. And what do they feed their babies on? Milk. And that's what makes them mammals, because they've got mammary glands producing the milk. What else have they all got? You're excellent, top of the class, chocolate mouse. They've all got some kind of hair, some kind of fur. And also, are they warm-blooded or cold-blooded? Warm-blooded, of course. And the biggest mammal in the world? Blue whale. And a mammal that can fly, that gives birth to babies, has hair, and feeds those babies on milk? Bats, fantastic, bats. And so sheep are mammals, and they live in a temperate climate, so it's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, so they grow a winter coat to keep nice and warm, and then come the springtime, they want to shed their winter coat. Like your cats and dogs might do at home, they want to molt. And so thousands of years ago, if you've seen the little soay sheep, the little brown sheep on the way in, they are naturally molting. Their wool is naturally just falling out, which is why they look a bit tatty and moth-eaten. And what people used to do going back to Neolithic times, when we were walking around in loincloths with spears, we would walk around and pick that wool up off the ground and off the hedges, and we would use it and realise that it was a valuable product to make clothing and those sorts of things from. And then we domesticated sheep and we brought them into enclosures, and we started to selectively breed for animals that hung on to their wool. And eventually we bred out of our modern day breeds the ability to molt. So they can no longer molt their fleeces. So in a hot summer like we have, they'll get heat stroke unless we take the wool from them. So what they used to use to shear the wool from them, to be able to harvest the wool all at one time, they use these hand shears. And there's still hand shearing competitions around the world, and they found a pair of these in the pyramids. So what's that, 5,000 or 6,000 years ago? Incredible that these have been around for thousands of years. And of course, when you're out on the farm and out in the fields, if you find a sheep with a bit of bramble caught in it, or it's got a bit of muck around its back end, we can use these out in the field to clip their wool. But now, with the wonders of electricity, we now have a shearing machine, and on the shearing machine is a comb and a cutter that are very, very sharp. And the comb combs over the surface of the sheep's body, and the cutter shoots backwards and forwards very, very quickly and snips off all the wool. So who's been to the barbers lately? Anybody? Yeah? And did they use a machine, a pair of clippers? Did it hurt? No, it doesn't hurt, does it? Unless you got a rubbish barber. And who's got really short hair? Any of you boys or girls got their old fades down to a skin? Oh yeah, it's pretty sidey, pretty sharp cut. Yeah, well, so there we go. There we are. Stand up, sir. You got it. Yeah, that's nice. That's what's that? Number one down the sides. Fran can do a number one. We'll do it all over later. Right. So it doesn't hurt the sheep. It just glides over the surface of the skin, and that's the skill of the shearer to hold the sheep in the correct position so their skin is tight, so it's only wool that gets combed in. And what Fran is doing is wearing these shearing moccasins that are made of wool felt that grip on these boards. The wool is full of grease that I'll show you later, but she doesn't want to be slipping over with rubber-soled shoes, so she's wearing shearing moccasins that are very grippy, but also they're very soft on the sheep. You're moving the sheep around all the time, and you're more likely to bruise your toe than you are the sheep. So the shearing moccasins are really important. I've got a couple of photos to show you here. So usually a sheep's fleece weighs about 2.5 kilos. In Australia, out in the outback, they found this sheep called Shrek. And he had years and years of wool on his back. So amazing that he hadn't died of heat stroke. And when he was shorn, they collected 27 kilos of wool off this sheep. So usually you'd get about 2.5. And then a few years later, in 2015, they found this fella called Chris, and he had 40 kilos of wool. Just an extraordinary amount of wool on these animals' backs. Right, so what we'll do now, we'll watch Fran in the art of shearing. So the first sheep she's doing is a little Shetland from the Shetland Islands that produce a beautiful fleece. And so the first thing she does is sit the sheep down so it's in a comfortable position. Not on its backbone, but on its thigh, so it's nice and comfy. And then she's using her knees and her legs to hold the sheep nice and still so that she can shear it. So in the technique of shearing, it's called the Bowen method. And you basically pivot the sheep around the shearing machine so the fleece comes off all in one piece. So you start off down the belly, and this sheep didn't have any wool on its belly. You then go along the back leg, then up the neck, one side, down the other side, over the back side, and away you go. These little Shetland sheep are a primitive breed, so they're very ancient northern short-tailed sheep, they were called. They're sort of part of our indigenous breeds that lived in the UK. And they're little, but they're very wriggly. So you can see Fran is bending the sheep so that the skin is nice and tight, so there's no wrinkles. Bending the sheep in a way that her body is pulling the skin tight. She's done up the neck, over the one side, and now she's working her way down the final side. Little wriggly Shetland, using her knees to grip the sheep, bending over in such a way that the sheep is supporting its own weight. It's bad, it hurts your back because you're bending over all the time, so Fran is very supple, but once you get the hang of it and you've got the sheep in the right position, it should be reasonably easy. So there we are. So one beautifully shorn sheep.
What we will say is there's not many sheep here on the farm that you can pick up back. So as Adam said, the Shetlands are particularly small. Makes them fairly easy to shear for me because I'm quite small. Mike, our livestock manager, is 6'5". He hates the Shetlands because he's almost kneeling down to shear them.
There we go. And then all the fleeces are rolled up in the same way, from the inside to the outside and from the back legs up to the neck and shoulder wool, and that's where the best, finest wool is. And if you notice these Shetlands, they come all sorts of different colours. And this colour is a brown, but the outside is bleached by the sun. So that's the natural colour of the wool, but it's been bleached by the sun. And so now what I'm going to do, are you going to shear another one? So we'll shear another one quickly, and then whilst we're handing out some wool, my very able assistant, so if everybody gets a little handful of wool, we all need some. You're going to help hand some around? Yeah? Going to help hand a bit around? There we are. So just before you get your hair cut, hand some around. Right there. So everybody get just a little, all you need is a little bit each, just a little bit each. Hold your head. Okay, over there, ready? All got some? Good catch. Anybody else? Just get a little bit in your hands. So this is a commercial sheep, and this is one of our clean Romney crosses. And these are ewe lambs, so they were born last April, so they're just over a year old, and this is the first time they've ever been shorn. So when it sat down on the boards, it was known as a ewe lamb, and once it's been shorn, it's known as a shearling, because it's been shorn once. This ewe will go to the ram in the autumn, and then she'll give birth in this shed next spring. So you can come and watch them giving birth in the spring in the lambing shed. So the World Championship for shearing is 371 sheep in 9 hours. That's 36 seconds per sheep. So incredibly fast. And the shearers get paid by the sheep. So they go, the faster they go, the more they get paid. We pay Fran by the hour. So she just takes her time, no rush. The shear is known as a blow, and she puts her foot in between the back legs and runs the shears right up the length of the sheep's body, getting the maximum amount of wool off in one movement. Sometimes you might catch a little bit of skin, and it's a bit like cutting yourself when you're shaving, and because the wool is full of lanolin and it's a grease that's very healing for the skin, that heals up in no time at all. So this is one of the trickiest bits of the sheep, just along the last bit round its backside, over its rump. Okay, oh, I've got it. Here we go. Expertly shorn, so causing the least stress possible to both sheep and shearer. Okay, let's talk wool. So everybody got their piece of wool? If you haven't got a piece of wool, you need a piece of wool. There's lots on the floor if you want some. So you get your little bit of wool, and the qualities of wool for the sheep, what are they? Keeps them nice and warm, keeps them nice and warm. And why does it keep them warm? If you pull your wool apart and look at it very carefully, you'll see it's made up of tiny little fibres, and they've got microscopic hooks on them that hooks it all together so it doesn't all just fall apart. And so when the sheep lies down at night, it squashes up the wool, so all squeeze your wool up in your hand, and then it wakes up in the morning and gets up, and its wool springs back into shape. And in between all those little fibres, the warmth from its warm blood, because it's a mammal, warms up the air in between all those little fibres and keeps it warm like a duvet. And then in the rain, it stays dry because of the lanolin. So if you rub that on your hand, you can feel the grease on your hands, which is really good for you. People make lanolin soaps and lanolin hand creams, and then also they use it in lint for burns. So using the natural lanolin from the body of the sheep, we use it as a product in our cosmetics, and that's what keeps them dry. So it rains, and the rain just falls off the sheep. They'll give themselves a shake, and it falls away. If you get a bit of cotton wool when you go home and pop it in a glass of water, or you get a bit of this sheep's wool and pop it in a glass of water, take them out. The cotton wool will be soaking wet, whereas the sheep's wool, give it a shake, and it'll be almost dry. Okay, so what do we make out of wool? Why do people want to collect wool? What do we make? Woolly on our heads, woolly hats, on our hands, woolly gloves, on our feet, woolly socks. What about what we walk around on in our houses? Woolly carpets, fantastic. Is anybody wearing wool today? Anybody got wool on? We're all probably wearing cotton because it's so warm, isn't it? So wool keeps you lovely and warm, but it does regulate the temperature. All of our wool goes to Harris and Spinks in Yorkshire, where they use it for bedding. They put it into high-end mattresses, and they've got some that just support the Cotswold breed, so they're mattresses with Cotswold wool in it, and we pay, they pay a very good price for the wool, so that gives those sheep a purpose, selling their wool to Harris and Spinks. And because wool naturally regulates temperature, if you're lying in bed, you know you always get hot, you chuck your duvet off, you get cold, so you pull your duvet back on. But if you've got a woolen duvet and a woolen mattress, it just regulates your temperature and you stay asleep all night. And sleep is so important for health and well-being. So how do you make a jumper? What the first thing we need to do? First of all, we've got to spin it. So just pull your wool apart a little bit and twist. Pull and twist and pull and twist. You all doing that? Have a go. And very, very quickly, you end up with a thread of wool. And to make a jumper, you knit it. And to make a carpet, you weave it, great. And why do you think that all the sheep that we've got now around the world and across the UK have been selectively bred so that they're white? Any ideas? So that you can dye it. So you'd never make this beautiful wool into a pink carpet. So lots of people who want to use natural coloured wool for beautiful natural coloured clothing will use these browns and blacks and spotty wools. But if you want to dye it to pink or blue, then you need wool that's white. So we've moved away from all our coloured breeds of sheep into white sheep so that the wool can be dyed. And that's one of the reasons that some of our beautiful rare breeds have become rare, because of their coloured fleeces. Look at that, Fran. Beautiful bit. There we go. You can take that home and do some knitting. Fantastic. So you can take your wool home with if you like. Make sure you wash your hands before you have your lunch. You could make some pictures at home, maybe use it for clouds or Father Christmas or the beard. You could do a little bit of spinning, a little bit of knitting. And so I recommend that you all, whenever you're choosing your carpets, your clothing or your jumpers, seek out for wool. We should be moving away from linoleums and polyesters and clothing that's made from oils and carbon damaging fuels. So we want to move to natural, sustainable products, and wool is that product. So there we go. There's a fleece all wrapped up in one big bundle that will go off into the mattresses. So let's give a big round of applause to Fran. She's going to carry on shearing now.
Sheep I had, they got loads of oil in their fleece, which is why I'm all shiny. Those of you that have felt the wool, you'll feel the oil on your hands. Different sheep vary on how much lanolin they have in their fleece. Sometimes just different breeds, different conditions, different weight. And this sheep, the Cotswold Farm Park, are known for being quite dry, and that makes it slightly harder to cut. So if you picture with butter, if you've got lots of soft butter that's been out of the fridge, your knife glides through easily. When there's no lanolin there, it's a little harder to hack through. So sometimes sheep is really sticky, and that's where it's quite cold, and you've got lots of thick lanolin against the skin, and that really is like putting your knife through hard butter straight out the fridge and makes it really hard work. Unfortunately for shearers, you rarely know until you've got the sheep out of the pen what you're facing. Your first cutter blow goes down. You've either got an easy one or a difficult one. Now, we had a girl come here staying with Adam, a friend of yours from New Zealand, and she stayed with us and she watched the shearing demo 2016, and she'd done a lot of wool wrapping in New Zealand, and she was amazed how simply we do it. In New Zealand, the wool is worth so much money. We split up the fleeces into different bits, and they've got different bags. The neck wool goes in one bag, the back legs goes in another. So rather than us in the UK, we just bundle it all up together. In New Zealand, the girls wrapping the fleeces are pulling it all apart, identifying what's what, and throwing it in bags. £10, well, it's sold to you, my fella. That would be a good deal for me. £1 will go up a little bit. So that fleece there would be about £2. That's a good quality fleece. It's fairly big, about £2. If you're employing me as a shearer, I would have charged £1.65 on average to cut that off the sheep's back. So you're making a very small profit. You now need to think you've fed your sheep for the whole year. You've paid for the whole year. You've looked after it. You've done vet bills. You've paid staff to come in and check them. You've done lambing. So we are now even making a loss on our fleeces. The little hill breeds, their fleece is probably worth about 10, 20, 30p. So you're still being charged £1.65 by the shearer to cut it off. Our commercial sheep have been bred to have good fleeces. We want to make as much money as we can, so it's one thing we have selectively bred for, is a good fleece. Although we're not making a profit, we're not making such a big loss. So it does have a vary, but there's still nobody in the UK making big money from fleece. Australia and New Zealand is a slightly different matter. They can make small profits on their fleece with the merinos. And as Adam says, the merinos don't like our wet and cold climates. They've got very fine fleece, but they really don't thrive here.
I think our visitors here in the Cotswold Farm Park love seeing the shearing demonstration, and here we have it, beautiful British wool. We should all be using and wearing more of it.